Eleanor Williams. Untold Stories from the West. Get your hand off your gun and put them both where I can see them, the woman demanded. Turn around slowly. Don't even think about trying nothing. I wouldn't want to ruin that stunning outfit of yours by filling it with holes. Charlotte looked at me and whispered loudly. While we were riding, I thought a lot about this great adventure we'd been on. But back at Armadillo, you failed to mention one small detail. That you got a damn bounty on your head. Well, you never asked, I whispered back. And this isn't the best moment to start revealing the finer details of my story to you. The bounty hunter's patience was all used up. She stepped towards us, grabbed my arm, and slammed me up against the wall. Hey! Charlotte shouted as she tried to get between us. You stay back, girlie, or I'll put you down without even thinking. The bounty hunter barked as she shoved Charlotte to the floor. Keep her out of this. She ain't done nothing, I told the bounty hunter. She took both of my guns off their holsters and threw them to the floor. You gotta be the stupid bitch alive setting foot back in the exact same time you got your bounty at, she said with a mean tone. I turned my head to look at Charlotte. The poor girl was clearly panicking about the situation. Charlotte, try to keep it cool. Breathe. This will all be over soon, I said, trying to calm her down. It'll be over when you're in a cell and I got $60 in my pocket, said the woman while she was holding me against the wall. Pfft, $60, really? I chuckled. She turned me around and looked at me face to face, sticking her gun under my chin. What's so funny, sweetheart? You know that the sheriff is right around that corner? How long is 60 going to last you? I asked her. A month? Then what? You're going to go after another bounty worth not a lot more? Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. Or maybe you go off and get your fucking head blown off in the process. You know how dangerous this work can be? Get to the point, bitch, she said. My point is, I continued, is that I'm offering you the opportunity to earn more money than you have ever fucking dreamed of. A score that'll be enough to set you up so you will never have to do this work again. It'll be dangerous, sure, but no more dangerous than being a lone female bounty hunter in a world filled with outlaws looking to put you 6 feet under when you come for them. She looked even more pissed and annoyed. What are you talking about? What opportunity? She forcefully mumbled while pressing her forearm deep into my throat. We can talk about it elsewhere, I said as I struggled to breathe. Not here. There are eyes on us. A couple of townfolk were curiously looking at us from the street. Why should I trust a murdering bitch like you? She said as she pressed her forearm even harder against my throat. You're choking her! Yelled Charlotte. She got up and ran as if Bull was chasing her and whacked the woman over the back of her head with the butt of the pistol I'd give her back at the ranch. The bounty hunter and I both collapsed to the ground. Charlotte knelt down beside me. Eleanor, are you alright? She pleaded, with the distraught look on her pretty face. I'm fine, I said as I started sucking in large breaths of that sweet strawberry air once again. The bounty hunter wasn't knocked out, but she was dazed. I could see she was quickly collecting her thoughts. She still had her gun somewhat pointing in my direction. Hey you, I said to the woman. Wanna hear that offer now? Or you wanna go to the sheriff and get your measly $60? Maybe after, you can go buy yourself a candy and some fucking brain, because you're obviously lacking in that department if you won't even hear what I gotta say about the score I got in the works. Before she could answer, some curious bastard came to interfere. He had his hand resting on his gun. What the hell's going on back here? He asked. The bounty hunter looked at me and holstered her weapon. Mind your business, she said to this nosy bastard. Ain't nothing going on but old friends seeing each other after too long time. And you aren't just sitting on the crown playing patty cake? He stubbornly asked. I saw you strangling that poor girl. Yeah, I said as we all stood up. I owed her $60 and we have always liked to play it a little rough. Keeps us on our toes. We just agreed that I paid her back. With interest. Isn't that right? I said as I looked over this bitch who had suddenly become such a royal pain in my ass. Oh, you're right, alright, she said, smiling at me. A lot of interest. Y'all are the weirdest bunch of women I ever done seen, the man mumbled to himself as he turned and walked back towards the street. I might be willing to hear your offer, said the woman, but how in the ever-loving hell am I supposed to be able to trust you? Do you have any idea how many times some piece of shit bounty target has promised me the world? Well, you can't trust me. I probably wouldn't trust me either, but sometimes in life, you just gotta take a chance on the possibility of something big coming along that could change your life. I haven't tried to kill you yet, have I? Did I try to escape after Charlotte whacked you? The fact is, I could really use someone with your grit and tenacity on this job I'm working, and there'll be plenty of gold to go around. Gold? Just fucking how much gold we talking here? She asked, with a glint in her eye. She was much more serious and focused now. More than you have ever seen, I told her. Take a chance. Meet me at Fort Riggs after sunset and I'll fill you in. You know where that is, right? She looked at me dead in the eyes while holding her gun tightly. I know where that is, she said very calmly. I'll be there. But if you're full of shit, I promise, I'll track you down and I'll rip your fucking guts out of your cunt. You and that cute little flower you're with. She gave Charlotte a quick glance before turning around and walking away. By the way, she yelled back, the name's Elizabeth. Charlotte was standing there with her mouth wide open. That was the scariest woman I ever seen, admitted Charlotte nervously. Do you think she'll go there? Are we going there? And what's all this about gold? Is it true? Do you think she would really pull our guts out of our JJs? Charlotte, I laughed. Enough with the questions. We got some shopping to do, and yes, we're going there. It looks like luck's on our side. Now come on. We made our way to the general store through the back entrance. We bought food, fabric, and detonating cords. The store owner had raised an eyebrow when I put the detonating cords on the counter, so I told him that we were having an issue with some big stones at a property in Big Valley. He seemed to eat that up just fine. We went back out, and I told Charlotte to wait there for me while I checked on something really quickly. I wasn't gone but a minute, and I'd met back with Charlotte behind a general store. Where'd you go? Asked Charlotte. I just wanted to see something, and also checked on my bounty poster. That shit is still up there, I said. Goddamn pain in the ass. We calmly walked to our horses. I started putting the items away and braced myself for the incoming questions from Charlotte. How did you get that bounty? She asked. And why do we need detonating cords? As I shoved the detonating cords deep into Sora's saddlebag, I said, Charlotte, I don't really want to talk about it right now. At least not here. What happened wasn't my fault. And as for the cords, I said, all will be revealed soon, my curious little cupcake. And trust me, what just happened was a good thing. Now let's ride. I've had enough of this place for now. Alright, Charlotte said as she hopped into Dakota's saddle. But this little cupcake is getting curiouser and curiouser, and my trust is wearing thin. The sun was still up as we rode to Fort Riggs. We set up a little campfire and put some coffee to boil. Waiting for a stranger was something I only did when I knew I was going to either capture or kill them. But I really needed people for this thing, and Elizabeth seemed like a good enough fit. It was a risk, sure, but she had me dead to rights in Strawberry, and ended up just walking away. I'm pretty certain she'll be up for the task. Charlotte had been quiet ever since we left Strawberry. I had a feeling that me having a bounty over my head was making her question the situation and company she'd found herself in. I knew I had to come clean about everything, and I really hoped she'd want to stay with me. I'd really grown to like this girl. Being fully honest has always been hard for me because everyone ends up judging you. But if you want people to like you for who you are, you gotta be honest. Charlotte, I know this whole bounty situation bothers you, I said as I was drawing lines into the dirt with the stick. She sighed and said, I grew up thinking that everyone who has a bounty is a bad person, or even worse, a bad person that's killed innocent folks. Look, nothing in this life is ever that black and white, I tried telling her. Charlotte interjected. Then what is it? She demanded. Her voice was getting slightly louder. You could have gotten yourself turned into the sheriff today, or worse. You could have been killed. And why is Strawberry so important to you? If you can finally be honest, I'll go back to Armadillo because I don't want to be around liars. She crossed her arms like she always did when she was annoyed or getting a little angry. For this whole time, you haven't told me anything about what you're planning, she said. I've just been following you around like a blind puppy dog, waiting for you to throw me a bone. I'm sorry I haven't told you anything yet, but know that me not telling you doesn't make me a liar. I just haven't got that far, and I was worried what you think of me, I say, trying to defend myself. Charlotte looked to the ground, and I poured myself a small cup of coffee. I just don't want to be in the shadows anymore. What's the next surprise going to be? That you're wanted in Saint Denis? She mocked. I'm not wanted anywhere else, I said as I sipped my coffee. I had a bounty hunter partner for a few months, a bitch called Lucinda. When I told you I had been in Armadillo before, I was there with her and we were there for Del Lobos. The same evil gang of bastards that I think attacked the town when you were a child. I know for a fact that they've been around since well before I was even born, maybe for many decades. They're savages and they must be somewhat organized to have lasted this long without being totally shut and eradicated. I heard there was a shootout at Twin Rocks earlier this year involving some of them. Was that you two? She asked. Yeah, that was us, I said. We got 'em, but they are like a plague of rats, always multiplying. The main group are still out there somewhere. But anyway, Lucinda had gotten herself shot, so we stayed at the saloon for a few days while she healed. And that's where she told me about this plan that we're going to be doing. Every detail. And about your bounty? She asked intently. Well, I'm just so glad you asked about that, I sarcastically said with a smile. Now, this upcoming plan involves dynamite. Don't worry, I said as I could see Charlotte's eyes get wider and her mouth go open. We're not blowing anyone up, okay? Now, if you'll allow me to continue my story, Miss Duval. Charlotte closed her mouth and nodded her head. So, Lucinda had gotten a good deal on some dynamite from a man up in Strawberry. Despite what you may have heard, dynamite is hard to come by, especially in the amount that we would need to pull this job off. He said he stole it from a small army contingent that was headed for Fort Valles when they'd set up a camp for the night along the way. Once we got the hold of the dynamite, we didn't want to travel with it because it's dangerous. It was stolen and it had US Army printed on every piece. Plus, Lucinda's plan wouldn't be kicking off until many months into the future. So we decided to stash the dynamite in the crawl space underneath one of the hotels there. It was out of the way and around the side of the hotel. Charlotte didn't move a muscle as I continued with my explanation. Now, as I passed the final punch of dynamite to Lucinda to place under there, a couple of men came around the side and saw us, and saw what we were hiding. They were telling us they were going to tell the sheriff and let the hotel owners know. And as they were explaining this to us, Lucinda stashed the last bundle of the explosives under the space and placed a wooden cover over it, and whipped out her gun and shot one of the men in the head without saying anything. The other man was just as shocked as I was, and drew his gun and was about to fire on me, so I drew faster and killed him outright. Charlotte looked horrified. Those men were innocent. They didn't try and kill you first, she said. Charlotte, I know, I say, pleading with her, but you've got to understand. Lucinda forced me into that situation of having to kill or be killed. She started it, and I was forced to finish it. I was cursing her left and right as we escaped the sheriff and rode out of there. She was laughing like she was having a blast. That crazy bitch. It wasn't my fault, and that's why I got this damn bounty hanging over my head. Now finally do you understand? I never wanted to kill that innocent man. This explanation seemed to satisfy Charlotte. She had her lips pursed together and had a serious look in her eye, but she nodded silently. Well, we obviously had to lay low, so we went back and phoned my grandpa Eddie and my mother Cynthia, and we set up a small camp on the outskirts of the Great Plains outside Blackwater. Since the job was many months away, we didn't talk about it. In fact, Lucinda was never the talkative type. She would hardly speak to me anymore, and eventually she just up and left one night and never came back. A tinge of sadness pierced my insides as I remember how I had felt at that moment in time. My heart still hasn't recovered, it seems. God damn you, Lucinda, I thought as I pushed the sadness back down inside where it came. That's why I went to Armadillo, to try and find her, I said. She did mention she might go up there to kill more del Lobos. When she wasn't there, I decided I'd try and carry out this plan myself. Instead of finding her, I found you. The cutest little thing that I've seen in a long time, and someone I've grown to care about quite a bit. I'm glad you're still here with me, Charlotte. I'm glad you haven't jumped on Dakota and rode out of here at full speed like the devil was chasing you. Charlotte beamed with a big smile. I can take a good with the bad, she said. I just need you to be honest with me from now on. I can do that, girl, I said, giving her a reassuring smile. We sat in silence for a little while, just throwing little stones into the fire before Charlotte said, You think that scary lady is still coming? She will, I told her. What if she comes with lawmen all guns blazing? Charlotte asked worryingly. I know her type, she wouldn't, I said. What is her type anyway? She's here, I interrupted as I stood up. Well, bake me a cake and call me a cowboy, Charlotte said as she quickly jumped up too. What? I said as I looked at her confused. Charlotte shrugged and raised her eyebrows. Well, 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 would you look at these two muffins? Elizabeth said while walking straight up to us. She was leading what seemed to be a grey Breton horse with sparkling white hair that glistened in the moonlight. Hope you're both really comfortable around your cute little campfire here. Now are you gonna tell me this infamous plan of yours, or am I going to have to drag you kicking and screaming straight to the sheriff in Strawberry? I drew my gun quicker than lightning and pointed it at her before Elizabeth had time to even think. Don't be calling me no muffin, I said with a wry smile. I started to twirl my gun around my finger in a fast and beautiful showcase of skill before putting it right back in its holster. Glad you could join us. Now sit your ass down and let me explain how we're all going to be a filthy fucking rich. Elizabeth obliged with a smile and we all sat down around the fire. Now let me finish before you go on asking any questions. This goes for the both of you, I said as I gave them a quick look. Charlotte and Elizabeth both nodded in agreement. Now ladies, I know when and where there'll be a lot of gold being stashed in the underground vault at the really small bank in a really small town called Limpany, I say to them. 2 weeks from now, a group of Pinkertons will be traveling with the fully armored wagon, hiding a mounted Gatling gun and a hell a lot of gold. They'll be taken to the bank in Limpany to be held there for a very short period of time, in an underground vault. The gold will sit there until a small contingent of about 15 men will come to pick it up and take it with them. It'll be the Valentine Sheriff and many of his men. They'll come with the normal wagon, packing lots of firepower also. They'll have a Gatling gun on their wagon too. Are you both with me? Yes, Elizabeth said with a straight face. Pinkertons will deliver the gold to a vault in Limpany and the sheriff is supposed to come grab it. Now continue. Okay. Now the Pinkertons are a legit company and don't like to be seen doing business with any kind of shady people that are known to be deep into corruption. The sheriff and his men are corrupt as all hell, and so is Valentine. So after the Pinkertons secure the gold in the vault, they're supposed to leave. They're paid to deliver the gold to Limpany, not to stay and make sure the corrupt sheriff comes and grabs it. After they have left, the gold will be guarded by 4 armed men inside the very small bank. We'll subdue them in the bank after someone goes in and creates a distraction. We'll pull a wagon up out front and blow the vault open using dynamite. Load the gold into the wagon and get the hell out of there. Okay, I'm with you so far. The Pinkertons drop the gold off and then leave, said Elizabeth. Keep going. The only problem is, I said, is that the sheriff and his men are due to roll into Limpany not 5 minutes after the Pinkertons leave. Hell, there'll probably be watching the Pinkertons unload the gold from a safe distance just outside the town already. They'll be fully armed too with too much firepower. There'll be nowhere near enough time to do what we gotta do to get that gold without having to worry about getting chopped in half by that Gatling gun they got. I looked at Charlotte. She reminded me of an owl with its eyes wide open, sitting completely still and blinking like I was shining lantern light in her face. I almost started laughing. But I know the route they'll be taking when they leave Valentine on their way to Limpany, I say with a somewhat wicked smile. They'll have to cross the certain bridge on the road southwest of Valentine. We're gonna get 2 other members of the gang to blow up the bridge with some dynamite we're going to get. Another 2 members? Asked Elizabeth, clearly annoyed. Just how many shares are we talking about here? I said no questions, I snapped at her. Relax, girl. I'll answer any query you may have after I'm done. I smirked at her. She smiled back and motioned for me to continue. So 2 other members will blow up the bridge just as the wagon with the Gatling gun crosses it. It's not a big drop to the ground. They'll survive, but they'll have some injuries, and the Gatling gun will be useless without being on that wagon. It will majorly slow them down. That'll give us more than enough time to do what we gotta do. Get the gold and get the hell out of Limpany. After the bridge is blown, the other 2 gang members will hightail it to Limpany using the back trails. We'll wait for them to meet us and then go into the bank. We'll have Charlotte and another member be lookouts hanging out front. You won't have to worry about the guards, Charlotte. Charlotte nodded, and I could see that it was starting to click inside Elizabeth's mind too. I knew that if she could picture it, then she'll know that this will work. I got a feeling that I won't have to worry about her taking me into the sheriff at Strawberry anymore. After we got that gold loaded, we're going to avoid all roads and follow the coast right near the water's edge. The wagon can handle it. We'll keep going around until we get the Gill landing, I said. There'll be a small boat waiting for us. We'll load the gold on the boat and walk it through the water a very short distance out to a small island where there'll be a hole already dug waiting for us. We quickly dump the gold in the hole and bury it. We separate and meet up at a small ruined hut in the woods just northwest of the Southfield Flat. It's just outside of roads. We will come back in a day when the heat is not as high, dig up the gold, divvy it up, and you can go your separate way and live the life you've always dreamed of. Now tell me how fucking good that sounds, Elizabeth, I confidently asked her. That sounds positively delicious, she said, but I got a few questions. I knew you would have, I said. Go ahead, shoot. Well, for starters, how many people are going to be doing this job? She asked. It'll be us 3 and another 2 members of my gang that are camped out near Blackwater, I told her. We're also going to need 1 more, so I'll need your help to recruit someone from Thieves Landing or maybe the saloon in Blackwater. That will make 6 people in total. I'm not greedy, so we'll also divvy up the gold into 6 equal shares. We will all be taking an equal amount of risk, so we should all get an equal amount of gold. I'm liking that, Elizabeth said. And where are you getting all this dynamite from? There's a whole punch stashed under a crawl space of a hotel in Strawberry, I told her. I'd bought some stolen dynamite earlier this year in Strawberry and stashed it there. After our first encounter, I checked to see if it was still there, and it hadn't moved. So that's where you went off when we were behind the store? Asked Charlotte. Yeah, I answered. I had to check if it was all still there. Hasn't moved an inch. We're golden. Now how in the sweet fuck did you find about this plan? Asked Elizabeth more seriously. I found out from an old bounty hunter partner of mine, I said. And yes, I used to do a spot of bounty hunting myself a while ago. Well, I'm just learning more and more about you by the minute, Elizabeth said. How'd this partner find out? And is she one of the members of your gang? I don't know how she found out, I confessed it. But I trust her, and you're just going to have to trust me. We had somewhat of a falling out, and she left our camp about 6 months ago. She never came back, and I couldn't find her. But don't worry about that bitch. If she ever shows her face again, then I'll deal with her. That's if she's even alive. She was fucking nuts. Much like you. Well, I might be slightly crazy, said Elizabeth with a chuckle, but at least I got morals. Well, that's reassuring to hear. I said, smiling. I thought to myself, maybe I'll tear that bitch heart out and feed it to the stray dog if she shows up. There was a pause in the conversation, so I looked both of them one by one. You both all good? I asked. All good? So to summarize, the Pinkertons are dropping off some gold at the Limpany Bank and leaving. The Valentine sheriff is picking it up, but he won't show up because he will run into some trouble at the bridge. Then, that's when we'll swoop into Limpany, blow the vault, and grab the gold. We'll take off and bury it near Gill Landing. We'll separate and meet up at the ruined little hut northwest of Southfield Flats near Rhodes. We'll come back in a day, dig up the gold, take our shares, and ride out of there and live like kings. Now come on, we're going to Blackwater. Well, you already know I'm in, Elizabeth said with a cheery voice. Come here, Luna. The grey Breton horse slowly walked towards her, and she climbed up into the saddle and gave me a sneaky glare. But just know that I got my eye on you, she said to me. With an overly dramatic speed, she shifted her glare towards Charlotte and opened her eyes wide and said, And you too, little one. I'm not little, Charlotte insisted while unhinging Dakota. I'm a big girl, and I can blow your head into the itty-bitty pieces like a bottle sitting on a hay bale. Whoa, Elizabeth mocked. Hey, Eleanor, are you sure we can trust the Wild West gunslinger over here? She could be trying to kill us all and take the gold for herself. She's maybe planning on buying a cute little dollhouse when this is all over. Elizabeth laughed out loud. Quiet, you two, I snapped while I was sitting on the top of Sora. Now come on, we're off to Blackwater. You're finally going to meet the other two members of our gang, so let's ride. After a couple of hours, we arrived at my old camp. Feels like I've been away for an age. Mama was scrubbing some washing in the wash basin and Grandpa was sitting on the table reading the newspaper. He was still wearing that white suit of his. Sometimes it feels like that's all he ever wears. Mama and Grandpa both looked up as I rode in with my two new companions. Grandpa Eddie got up from his seat. Care to explain what's going on, child? He asked. This is Charlotte Duval, I said as I got off Sora's saddle and motioned toward Charlotte. She's a nice girl I met in Armadillo. She'll be riding with the gang from now on. Charlotte waved at Cynthia and Eddie as she got off her horse. Howdy, she said. And this is... Elizabeth cut me off. I'm Elizabeth. That's all you need to know about me, she boldly stated while staying on her horse's back. She looked over at me. I didn't expect the rest of your gang to consist of these two dinosaurs, Cranny and Cramps, both with one foot already in the grave. Elizabeth chuckled. Now wait just a damn minute, barked Grandpa as he smacked the newspapers he was holding down on the table. I didn't fight for the North and watch my fellow Union soldiers die face down in the dirt for some sassy little smarty pants to come riding into the camp to give me the saucy big mouth. And I am no cranny, interjected Mama, but I am old enough to be your mother, and you're still young enough to get bent over my knee and get your bottom smacked black and blue. Cripps walked out from behind one of the tents. Don't mind me, he said as he walked over to clean an animal hide he has strung up. A dog followed right behind him. They've gone and gotten a dog, I thought to myself. I hate dogs. Elizabeth glanced at Grandpa Cripps and the dog. She then looked directly at Mama and said, Look, it's Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I'm still young enough to remember that storybook as a child. Grandpa opened his mouth like he was about to say something big. Hey, I said with the booming voice, cutting him off. Now let's just everyone calm right down and relax. Grandpa's jaw snapped shut, but his eyes remained ready for war. Grandpa and Mama, would you come into my tent, please? I asked. I've got some new developments that I need to fill you in on. Let's leave these two ladies to get to know each other better. I winked at Charlotte as Grandpa and Mama made their way over to my tent and walked inside. Eleanor! Charlotte called out. She hurriedly walked over to me with a concerned face and whispered, Are you seriously gonna leave me with her? Charlotte quickly nodded her head in the direction of Elizabeth, who was busy brushing her horse. You'll be fine, I say with a smile as I tap on her shoulder. She won't bite. At least I don't think she does. Now go have a seat. I gave her a cheeky smile and watched as she crossed her arms and walked around the campfire to sit down. She stole a quick look at Elizabeth and found that Elizabeth had stopped brushing Luna and was staring straight at her, a worried smile across her face and a crazy look in her eyes. This new girl was playfully taunting Charlotte from across the campsite by just using a facial expression. She'll be fine, I thought to myself as I turned around and walked into my tent shaking my head. Grandpa and Mama were sitting next to each other on the bed. Both were waiting patiently for me to speak, and both were giving me a stern look. All right, I say to them with a very serious tone. A lot has happened since I've been gone, and there's something extremely important that I'm going to have to ask both of you. They were on the edge of the bed, staring at me, waiting for what I was about to ask them. I narrowed my eyes and said, "Why the damn dog?"
"Oh, seriously, child?" Grandpa Eddie blurted out in frustration. "You been gone, I don't even know how long, doing God knows what at God knows where, with the bounty hanging over your head, and you come waltzing back in the camp dragging a couple young little Miss Cowboys with you? How about you finally come clean to your poor worrying mother and I?"
Okay, I laughed. But I'm naming her Fuji. I thought if they brought a dog into my camp, then I was going to be the one to name it. I paused for a second and rubbed my chin. How would you both like to join us and rob a little old bank in Limpany? I asked. Do what now? Mama asked in shock. I went on to explain the whole plan to them in as much detail as I could. I needed them with me, so it had to make sense, and they had to know it could be done. Of course, my dear old grandpa disagreed.
"Absolutely not, child," he said, concerned. "That's suicide. You're ready to waste those two young girls' lives like that?"
"The plan will work," I said. "They know the risks, and they're ready to try at least. I can't live this way anymore, and opportunities like this don't come around every day. You said yourself that you'd always be there for me if I needed your help. Well, I need it now, more than ever."
"Child," he said in a somber tone, "you know, I just don't want no one to get killed over some shiny bars. I've seen enough corpses in my lifetime."
"I don't plan on dying. I've got this all figured out. If we follow the plan, nothing can go wrong," I say, trying to convince him. "It's worth the risk." Grandpa stood up, let out a big sigh and said,
"Well, I can see your mind's already made up. If you need me, I'll be there for you every step of the way. I'd gladly die fighting by your side, child. Guess it's time to put these dusty guns back to work again. These eyes might be getting older, but I'm still a crack shot."
Mother looked worried as always. "Eleanor," she said calmly, "there was a time when I couldn't do much of anything to help you when you were a child with your father, and I've regretted it every day since. But by golly, I'll help you now." She started to get louder. "We'll do this together, as a family. We'll all work together. We'll be the Golden Team." She stood up with enthusiasm and raised a fist into the air. "Mom," I laughed, "it's not a team, it's a gang. We'll have to work on the name though. But if we can pull this off, we're gonna be rich. Now let's head back outside." The three of us went and joined Elizabeth and Charlotte around the campfire. I brewed some coffee for all of us, and we started chatting to get to know each other better. Charlotte was more than happy to tell things about her former life at the ranch. Elizabeth didn't say much of anything, even though Grandpa tried asking her a bunch of questions about where she came from and what her old life was like. But Elizabeth was stubborn and gave up nothing except for maybe a death stare or two.
"I see you're not really the chatty type," Grandpa said. "Hey, Eleanor, do you really trust this one with our lives, going up against a bunch of armed guards?"
"Don't worry yourself, old-timer," Elizabeth said. "I've got many reasons for us all to survive while doing this job, and those reasons just happen to be made out of solid gold." "Grandpa," I said, "don't worry about her. She'll be risking just as much as we are. I suggest we'll all learn to get along because we'll be camping together for the next 10 days before Elizabeth and I head into Blackwater to recruit the last member needed for this job. Now pour me another coffee, would you? We spent the next week and a half hunting and keeping a low profile. The others got to know more about Charlotte and a little less about Elizabeth. It wasn't like she said much about herself, but the little we found out helped us to understand her a little bit better. She was a bit of a loner, usually liked to work alone, and is damn near impossible to earn her trust. But it has been known to happen, she told us jokingly. We learned that she pretty much hates most people going around. I can't blame her, to be honest. There are a lot of assholes roaming around these days. Charlotte and Grandpa were getting along quite well. He was teaching her more about horses and shooting. I was sure he was telling her stories about his time in the war, and if I knew Charlotte, she'd have been all ears and her imagination running wild. They were building quite a bond between those two. It made sense because Charlotte had never known her grandfather and had lost her parents at such a young age. Grandpa also has never forgiven himself for not being there when his own daughter was growing up. So I can understand the connection they seem to have made so far. Mama was making us some bandanas from the fabric Charlotte and I had brought back in Strawberry. She'd cut 6 20 by 20 inch cloths, big enough to tie around our necks and pull up just under our eyes. Can't be having any witnesses getting a good look at our faces in the upcoming Limpany job. That'd be a disaster. The time had come for Elizabeth and I to head into Blackwater and check out the local saloon. Maybe we'd find the 6th member for our job there. If that failed, there was always Thieves' Landing, but we'd only go there if we had no other choice. We'd saddled up and headed for the saloon in Blackwater. We hitched our rides around back and walked to the front of the building and pushed open the saloon doors. "Let's head to the bar," said Elizabeth. We walked over to the bar, and as soon as we got there, Elizabeth pulled me a bit closer and whispered to me. "Would you look at that?" she said. "Way in the back there. That's Clint Thompson. I mean, he looks a little bit different from his old poster, but I'll be a monkey steamboat captain if that ain't him. His hair is different, and he's all clean-shaven, but that's him all right. He's wanted for multiple robberies in Saint Denis. I wonder what he's doing all the way down here. He's never been caught by the law, hasn't even come close to it. And now he's drinking a fucking beer in the bright light of day. Look, I know we just got here, but if there was ever a suitable partner for this job, that'd be him. And you want him into the gang?" I asked her somewhat doubtfully. "He looks like a damn son of a bitch." "Yep, that is the guy," she said. "Not that I trust him for shit, but I know he can handle himself. Fucker's got a lots of experience too. Seriously, he's what we're looking for." "Well, alright then," I said as I looked in Clint's direction. "Go ahead, girl, do your thing. Get him on board, but don't give out too much information just yet. Tell him that we'll fill him in on the important parts of the plan just before we head into Limpany." Elizabeth brought a couple of beers and went to sit down next to Clint. I was standing next to the door and keeping an eye out for the law. Even though I wasn't wanted in Blackwater, I still felt uneasy about being in town. She handed him a beer and they talked for the next 10 minutes. Eventually she stood up and they both shook hands. Looks like she got him on board. Elizabeth walked back over to me and told me that Clint was all in. She said he'd meet us near Limpany when the time came. Said we'd send him a telegram at the post office on Blackwater when the time was right on the exact location. A man like Clint, who's never been caught, must be very cautious when it comes to the type of job he's pulled. So I was surprised that it was this easy to recruit him, especially because I told Elizabeth not to tell him much of anything about our plan. Clint stayed to drink in saloon and Elizabeth and I walked outside towards our horses. "How in the hell did you convince him to join us so quickly?" I asked Elizabeth, especially when he doesn't really know much about how it's all going to go down. "Well, I had to let him know a few more details," she said. "I told him about the Pinkertons, the love from Valentine, and about the gold that would be in Limpany." We got to our horses and started to ride back to camp. "I don't trust anyone," I yelled sarcastically while riding, imitating and mocking what Elizabeth had told us back at camp. Says the untrusting one who told the complete stranger when and where they'll be called in Limpany, and we just left his ass there. What if he decides to fuck us and get the gold himself? He won't, she yelled back, assuring me. He knows he needs more information. He doesn't know about the finer details of the plan. The guard numbers, the firepower of the Pinkertons and the law, the vault, the bridge, the timing of it all. He just knows enough to get him excited, but not enough to do it himself. You don't commit to as many robberies as he has, and not get pinched by going into job half-cocked without knowing every detail. The man ain't dumb. Now you expect me to trust you with this plan. How can I trust you if you can't trust me, girl? She yelled back with a smile. That Clint fella ain't doing shit without us. Giddy up! I took a deep breath and let out a dramatic sigh as we continued the ride back to the camp in haste. When we got back, the sun was setting, and it gave the land around us a golden hue. Fitting, I thought, because soon enough we'd have gold bars shining their light on our faces if we played our cards right. The gang were all sitting around the campfire, and we gave them the good news. We finally secured our last member to meet us at the job. We got a guy, I said. Clint, real professional. He's going to meet the night before the job, and we'll fill him in on the finer details when we get there. He's an old master thief. He'll catch on quickly. Ain't gotta worry about that. If for some reason he give us any grief, then we'll just shoot him. Now we just need a wagon to load up the dynamite that's underneath the hotel in Strawberry. That'll also be the same wagon we'll fill that beautiful gold. I'll steal a wagon from some boar sap before we go to Strawberry, said Grandpa Eddie. I'll take my daughter Cynthia with me, and we'll also take the disrespectful one. Grandpa turned his head towards Elizabeth and eyed her down with the scroll on his face. It looked like Elizabeth was about to say something. I didn't know if she was going to burst out laughing or start berating him. Good, Grandpa, I said, effectively stopping Elizabeth from getting started on the old man. Tomorrow you three can also go into Strawberry and pick up the stash of sticks that go boom. You know where they are. Just need to back the wagon up. One of you can crawl under to grab them, and the other can stand just outside to load the crates on the wagon. Mama, you can stand at the front of the wagon to keep any looky-loos from sticking their noses where they don't belong. The gang were following along closely. All their eyes were fixed on me. Charlotte and I will be on the top of the hill that overlooks the place you'll be at, so ask to keep an eye for anything Mama can't see. After that, we'll head out of town. Eddie and Cynthia will take the couple of dynamite bundles and some detonating cords and head towards the bridge near Valentine. You two can set up the camp nearby, but don't make fire. Stay the night there and be ready to blow the bridge. It'll be an hour or two after first light the next day. The rest of us will make our way just past Limpany. We'll take the wagon and make camp at Bard's Crossing, and that's where Clint will meet up with us. We'll spend the night there and head towards a hiding place right outside Limpany to wait for the show to begin. The rest you all know. I looked at each of them and they all seemed enthusiastic. Charlotte was just wide-eyed. The day after tomorrow is the days, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw! Yeehaw! The gang all cheered in unison. Everyone knows their roles in this, said Grandpa. Gosh darn it if we can do this thing. We should get some sleep. But first I'm having myself a little drink. Crips, he said while looking left and right. Hand me that bottle of whiskey, would y'all, pal? Might as well sleep in longer since we leave in the evening, he went on to say. Before we go to sleep and face the dangers tomorrow, Charlotte asked, I want to know what you all want to do with your share of the gold. You know, the plans for the future? It was so very Charlotte to be asking everyone like that. That girl always finds a way to amuse me. I just love how she is, and I hope it never changes. Oh God, here we go, sighed Elizabeth as she took a beer from the crate near Cripps's wagon. I can start, Charlotte said, smiling. I want to go further west and set up a farm. Have pigs, sheep, chicken, cows, and horses. Have my own crop. Work the field and sell it too. I looked at her and said, That sounds wonderful. I got a feeling you'd be great at it.
I'd buy me a house near a beautiful lake and spend the rest of my years there, fishing and remembering the good old days,
Grandpa Eddie said with a proud smile. He tipped back of the whiskey bottle and took a mouthful. Oh, the good old days, Eddie? Questioned Elizabeth. You mean you celebrated the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776? Whoa, you must be around 140 years old by now. You sure you'd be strong enough to reel in those fish? You might have to resort to shooting then instead. That's if your withered old trigger finger hasn't turned into dust by then. Elizabeth smirked and laughed and then took a swig of her beer.
What's that smell? Asked Grandpa. I think this little toddler has gone and shit her diaper again. When you finish sucking on that weak mother's milk bottle, then maybe Cripps can change that shitty diaper of yours.
Did I ever tell you about the time? Cripps began.
Yes!
Grandpa, Mama, and I said at exactly the same time. Yes, we heard about that time. Pipe down, Cripps, I say with a giggle.
Well, okay then,
Cripps said as he went back to sharpening his knife. I'll go to England. I've been wanting to go there since I was a child, Elizabeth answered.
Maybe we can all chip in now and get you a ticket, Grandpa said. Then you could go over and knock the hell out of old Queen Victoria. Maybe she'll do the world a favor and yell, "Oh," with her head. I think losing your head would do wonders for your personality.
Grandpa started laughing as he took another shot of his whiskey bottle. Elizabeth let out a dull little giggle and took another sip of her beer. What about you, Cynthia? Charlotte asked. Me? Well, I would go back to my hometown in New Jersey and become a teacher. It's always been a dream job of mine. But my former husband would not have liked that. I was able to work in the jewelry store, but he was always upset about it. I still have some family living there as well. So, I think I'd like that very much, Cynthia said. Oh, you never mentioned anything like that to me, I told Mama. Well, I think the kids would love you. You'd be a great teacher. Charlotte looked at me and nodded. I took it as a sign that she was waiting for my answer. Mine sounds silly, but I would go to California and study to become a fashion designer. I've always liked fashion, I said, blushing. California? Charlotte asked. Whoa, that is far. We might hear about you in the newspaper. Eleanor Williams' designs are so popular her company can't keep up with the demand. I laughed and winked. Well, you never know. Wouldn't have figured a hard-ass gunslinger like yourself to be a fashion designer, Elizabeth said. Well, the more you know.
Then you better make me a new pair of long johns, Grandpa laughed. You know how I like 'em.
Let me guess, I said. As white as the clouds on a summer's day.
You betcha,
laughed Grandpa. He took another shot from his whiskey bottle. I'm going to bed now, Elizabeth said as she got up and started to walk towards her tent. Hang on, young lady, Cynthia said with a gentle voice. You'll need this. Mama handed her one of the bandanas she had made. Thanks, Elizabeth said as she put the bandana in her pocket. Good night, y'all. Cynthia handed the rest of us one too.
Thank you, child,
Grandpa said while stretching.
I'll head off too. Good night, and don't let those pesky bedbugs bite.
He laughed. The what? Charlotte asked, a little worried and confused. I giggled. Don't mind him, I told her. Good night, Grandpa. Oh, okay, she said, smiling. Good night. Mama motioned with the wave of her hand as she walked into her tent. Cripps also headed for his bed too. Charlotte was still sitting with me around the campfire. You're not tired? I asked her as I went to sit right next to her. No, I guess I'm nervous for tomorrow and the day of the job. So I'm definitely not tired, she confessed it. Kinda stupid, isn't it? She started to fidget with her fingers again like she always did every time she was nervous. I also noticed she was kind of shaking a little as she gazed into the fire. I'm afraid I might need to kill someone if something were to go wrong. Killing another human is never easy, I told her as I put my hand over hers. I had to do that on my first night in Valentine. right after I'd left home. The man was going to rob me, rape me, or worse. At least that's what I thought since he saw me in the store paying for my goods with the huge bill and followed me all the way back to my room. Thinking back on it now, I was just so glad that I had a gun with me. If you ever had to kill someone, Charlotte, then try and think of it like this, that you're doing it to protect yourself or the people you care about. Charlotte looked at me and said, "You know I'll try." Whoa, I shudder to think what that man might have done to you back on your first night in Valentine. She'd pulled up the gun I'd give her and held it in her hands, looking at it. "I hope I can be strong enough if the time ever comes," she said. Knowing Charlotte, there was going to be a question or two more, so I waited patiently in silence. "You haven't really talked about your childhood at all," she said. "All you've talked about is your life in the Wild West and with that red-headed woman Lucinda. Where are you from? Why did you leave home? Why did you end up here?" she asked. "Whoa, Charlotte, that's a quite few questions," I said as I giggled. "Even when afraid, you're still as curious as ever. A curious little cupcake, aren't you?" I smiled at her and she blushed a little. "Sorry, I'd just like to know more about you and how you were before all of this," she told me. "Like, could I also become somewhat a spark plug like you?" I thought to myself, I don't really like to talk about my past, but it might give her something else to think about other than the danger and unknown of what's to come. I took a deep breath and decided I'd tell her a lot of what I like to keep to myself. I was born in New York, far away from here. My childhood wasn't so great. I'm a daughter of a rich man who loved his money more than his youngest daughter. I have an older sister, Mary, who he always loved and cared for. He always hated me. I was always a verbal and physical punching bag for him. Charlotte had a look of worry and pity in her eyes. She held my hand like she'd done back at the campfire in Armadillo. "Whatever I did was never good enough for him," I said. Always grounded for something. One time I was about to say something I'd never told anyone before, and it felt like my guts were flipping over and over in circles, so I stopped myself. "Sorry, I couldn't take it anymore. So I left home when I was 16 years old and ended up in Valentine. I had to leave. I was going crazy. Cripps was the one who taught me how to survive out here. Eventually I ran into my mom Cynthia, who was also treated poorly. Then not much later, my loving grandfather Eddie found his way to us." "Why were you grounded so often?" Charlotte asked. "And why would he treat you differently from your sister?" I don't want to talk about it right now, really," I said to her. "I hope you understand. It just makes me feel ill. It doesn't matter now anyway. We should get some sleep. Come on, girl." "I hope I didn't say anything wrong," she said, slightly worried. "No," I assured her. "It's just the past is in the past. What's happened has happened. And there's no changing it. And there's no point reliving it now anyway. We've got some work to do tomorrow." We said goodnight to each other and turned the opposite directions and headed to our tents. "Wait," Charlotte said. She walked back over to me and gave me a hug. "Thank you for trying to relax me and telling me a little about yourself. It means a lot to me." Charlotte then turned around and headed for a tent. The hug she gave me had nearly made me tear up, and Charlotte's questions opened a wound that I thought was already closed. I wanted to tell her the whole story, but I just couldn't. Part of me is afraid of how I will react if I have to think about it and relive it. Part of me is ashamed of it. My mind was a mess right now, and it's a never good thing right before a big job like this. I walked to my tent, and I did my best to try and steady myself, but it was no use. When I got into bed, I was laying there as tears were rolling down my cheeks and wetting my pillow. It had been quite a while since I had cried like this. I had to cover my mouth so no one could hear me. I was supposed to be the leader of this gang, and I just couldn't stop myself from crying. Am I ready for what's to come, or am I leading us all to a certain death? I thought, as I suddenly started to doubt myself.